Hey, what's going on, fellas? It's Czar here. I got something a little different for you here today. Right now, I've got my friend here, Legend, aka David, here in the channel with me. Say hello, good buddy.
Hello, my name is Legend. That's short for Original True Gamer.
Alright, we can calm down a little bit here. We all know who the one true gamer is. But yeah, you can check out part one over on his channel, where I looked at the Pokemon ban list and tried to determine whether or not I knew which cards were banned and which ones weren't. We're going to be doing something a little similar over here. He's going to be presented with some Yu-Gi-Oh cards that may or may not be on the ban list, and we are going to see if he can determine, based on his extensive Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge, whether or not they are on the ban list.
I played the game once.
And that's all you need, friend. So yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh has a little bit of a different system too than Pokemon, I'm imagining. So we have a system where cards can be semi-limited or limited, and what that means is they are reduced from the full capacity of copies you can play at 3 in a deck, to either 2 or 1, but not fully banned. I don't know if that kind of system exists in Pokemon or not. We didn't go over that when we were talking. But it does in this, and all you'll have to guess though is if it's on the list at all. I'm not going to make you guess banned, limited, semi-limited. Um, so if that sounds fine to you, we can go ahead and get started, right?
Yeah, I'm glad that I don't have to guess like the percentage allowedness of each card.
All right. Tell me this one and why two exactly? Why two?
So
No.
so
So
you're overlooking one part of the strategy and that I think I have a major advantage doing Yu-Gi-Oh cards that you didn't have doing Pokemon cards.
oh yeah,
I pulled the list up on my phone beforehand, and so I can just look them up, you know?
dude, what do you think? That most recent ban list was hype, right?
Yeah. I thought crazy that that one card was on the list, and Exodia's still limited. Come on,
See, you do know the list. Come on, you cheating.
pot of
I,
generosity
what a
was new.
general. Yeah, it's a broken card. Anyway, let's not waste any more time here. You can see this first card here up on my screen, right?
Yeah, Elma, Butterfly Dagger. So this
Yeah.
one just seems like it's throwing an extra 300 attack onto whatever. I almost said Pokemon. This is effectively just a Poke tool that you just equip to something. It's a held item.
Hmm.
Knowing the ridiculous amount of battle damage that cards do in Yu-Gi-Oh, 300 is nothing. And even though this is a card that you just keep getting back every time it like somehow gets destroyed, I gotta say there's no way this thing is banned. It just isn't good enough. It doesn't do anything.
All right. Yep. So I figured I'd throw a curveball at you at the start. This card actually is banned, and not just
What?
anywhere on the ban list. It is fully banned.
How?
But it is there only because of I'm going to admit it's an FTK that I don't know the exact details of how to do. But there's a certain interaction where essentially this can loop with another card that interacts with equip spells and can kill your opponent in the first turn.
Oh, okay, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, it's another one of the we had one of those in your list as well, where this card is not the problem card; it's something else. But this is the one that got hit to stop the interaction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
yeah. But I
Like
figured
on its own, that's nothing.
yeah, we'd start off with a curveball with you. This seems harmless at first, but to be 100% honest with you too, it's such an outdated OTK that it probably wouldn't stand up to the modern power of decks, and this could probably come back. But it's just still there. Um, so we'll move on to the next one here. We've got, oh boy, it's Skill Drain, baby. So it's a trap card, a continuous trap card. You know how these work, right?
They always keep doing it whenever you activate
Yeah.
them.
So they stay on the field when they're activated.
Okay, so it's a stadium card.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. So you activate this by paying 1,000 life. You know you start with 8,000. And you negate the effects of all face-up monsters while they are face-up on the field. They can still be activated, but they're negated while they're on the field.
Okay. All face-up monsters don't have any effects. This is very similar to one of the ones that we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, it was just like Hex Maniac that negated all of your Pokemon's abilities from both players until the end of your opponent's next turn.
Right. Yeah, but there's a reason why I made that comment in your video about how maybe we're not so different, you and I.
Now, I know in Yu-Gi-Oh! paying life points is like having to not eat candy for a day. It's not that big of a deal. In fact, whenever I see somebody play Yu-Gi-Oh, which is not very often, I see they paid life points, I get excited because I'm like, okay, they're gonna do something cool now. So I think this card is banned. Paying life points is not that big of a sacrifice, and you can just design your deck around not needing face-up monster card effects. So even though it affects both you and your opponent, I think that it hurts your opponent a lot more than it hurts you.
So your rationale and everything you just said is absolutely correct. But if you would have asked me literally before today, you would have been correct as well. This card was on the ban list. As of today, though, the January 27th of 2022 ban list, this card came back to 3 copies per deck.
I mean, we recorded this yesterday, and you just happened to know things. That's crazy, man.
Oh, man. But yeah, that being said, though, I'm willing to give you credit for it because no one expected this to come back. It used to be at 1 copy per deck. No one was asking for this card to come back. It's not a fun card to play against, but Konami said, yeah, this is okay. And this is probably the one card on the ban list from today that everyone's upset about. So for all intents and purposes, it should be banned, and I want to give you credit because it should still be there, and it was literally 12 hours ago.
Time to update the meta.
Well, we'll see what the meta looks like after this card's in decks again. No one's got to play with it extensively just yet at 3. But we'll move on to the next one here. We got another trap card here. This time it's just normal trap, and it's very, very simple. You're just activating Time Seal and skipping the draw phase of your opponent's next turn. Nothing more to it.
Yeah, no. This is just an anti-Pot of Greed. Now, I don't really know what that does, but this must do the opposite. This is stupid. This has to be banned.
So the draw phase is the part of the turn where you draw your initial card for turn. Just in case that wasn't clear. Like when you start your turn and you draw your card, you're skipping that part of their turn.
Yeah, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Card draws are such a big part of the game. You have to be able to draw a card.
Yeah.
Right?
So, you see, this is where I'm thinking that you are thinking like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. So your final answer is that this is banned?
Don't threaten me. I don't. That's a scary thought.
I'm just trying to keep the tally straight so we know what your score is at the end.
Oh, I meant thinking like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. That's
okay.
I don't know if I want that associated with me.
Well, you're already better than us because you're actually reading.
My guess is that it is banned. I'm gonna stick with that.
So this card is banned, but not for any particular reason. So back in the day when this came from, this was a decent card. But these days, the game is so fast that games often end on turn 3 after you get your first battle phase as a first-turn player. Very often. The game is so fast that skipping a draw phase is literally irrelevant. Because the way trap cards work, you have to set them before you use them. And then you can't activate them until your opponent's turn. And so your opponent will get their first draw phase no matter what, assuming you go first on your first turn, draw this, and set it. So you wouldn't be able to skip your opponent's draw phase until at least their second turn, which would be turn 4 of the game. And that's the earliest you could get this resolved. So it's very, very slow.
That makes sense.
But you are right in saying that it is banned. Yeah, it's banned, and it's not because it's broken. We think it's just because Konami forgot it was there.
You know, it wouldn't be the first time that Konami forgot something.
Yeah, I wonder where you could be alluding to. Alright, let's move on to the next one here. This one, alright, we're getting into some more serious, less memey stuff now. So we've got Into the Void. I'm sure you can see the text there, but I'll just read it for the convenience of the people listening. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand, draw a card. And then if you do during the end phase of this turn, discard your entire hand.
You have 3 or more cards in your hand, draw 1 card, and if you do, during the end phase of this turn, draw your entire hand.
Discard, yeah.
Right. Discard your entire hand. I mean, if this were Pokemon, I would be taking a card and then doing everything I can to play out my entire hand before the turn ends. Games in Pokemon last a lot longer, so this wouldn't be that good in a Pokemon game. I wouldn't trade my entire hand at the end of my turn after I attack for a single card draw. That's just like not reasonable. I would just play Bill in that case. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, like, because like in Pokemon, I'd want to keep my hand for the next turn. In Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like it's in your best interest to use as many cards in a turn as you can. Like, I don't see what advantage you would have by holding on to them, except for ones that you can like react to your opponent based off of cards in your hand or something, like a hand trap or a spell card, I guess. And this is a spell card, so you can just play it. Right. Having an extra card draw. That's the thing. Like, this is eating one of the cards you would have otherwise drawn, and so all you're getting is taking how many cards are in a deck in Yu-Gi-Oh? 40?
40 minimum, 60 maximum.
So you just turn your deck into a 39 card deck with the disadvantage of having to not have a hand by the end of your end phase.
And remember, with the rules we're going by here, assuming you decide to go with this is not on the list, you would be assuming this is not anywhere in the limited sections either. So it would be less of a 39 card deck and more of a 37 card deck. Because you're playing 3 copies, assumedly.
Right. So, my first instinct with anything Yu-Gi-Oh! Is if it lets you reduce your deck size by 1/1,000,000%, then they just auto-ban the card. I don't really get it, but apparently it's a big deal. So I'm guessing, my instinct is that this would be banned, but I'm going to go against my instincts and say that this is legal.
Final answer?
Final answer.
All right. Well, you should have taken my compliment earlier that you were thinking like a Yu-Gi-Oh player, because your instinct was actually right on this one.
Oh.
This card is currently banned and has been for a couple years now. There's a few cards on the list. I don't think we have any repeats, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything here. But even just cards that replace themselves and don't net you any advantage in Yu-Gi-Oh, they just make your deck more consistent. Yu-Gi-Oh is full of decks that can combo off, put up an insane turn 1 boards that are just unstoppable on their very first turn. It's just a normality in Yu-Gi-Oh. And any card that's just going to increase your percentage of drawing those 1-card starters that get you to those combos, insanely broken. Even if it's going to cost you your hand at the end of the turn, everything's on the field at that point anyway. So yeah, for that reason, Into the Void's banned. Rightfully so, very deserving. Not to mention, this is also a buff to Exodia deep draw decks that I know you personally love referencing.
Whoa! Exodia!
Yeah, so 3 copies of this, 3 copies of all the other draw spells in the game. It's just very easy Exodia FTK before your opponent gets to play. So that's just a very unfun interaction too. But yeah, let's slap this one down and move on to the next one. Here we've got Pot of Avarice. We're going to be taking some elements from the video with you too, and mixing them in here and seeing what you think about those mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh! So, you're targeting 5 monsters in your graveyard with Pot of Avarice, shuffling all 5 into the deck, and then your Pot of Greeting, drawing 2 cards.
First of all, his mustache makes me uncomfortable.
What's wrong with the Charlie Chaplin?
You know, it's just like instinctual, I guess. I don't know. Now, in Pokemon, pulling stuff out of your discard pile is a really good thing, like, for you. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you're all about pulling cards out of your draw pile, and you're not really afraid to throw them into your discard, and I would say that, at least if that's correct, that's a pretty close similarity between the two. But this is a +1 at the cost of what? Losing access to your graveyard, which I know in Yu-Gi-Oh is like a second hand, right? So, so you lose a little bit of that ability, but for just an extra card, I gotta say that this is at least limited, if not banned. Okay. Pot of Avarice, ban list.
Well, you get partial credit for that one. For a long time, Pot of Avarice was on the list. But in the past couple years, it came off. The game has recently started moving too fast, and it is now to the point where this was fine to come off for the reason that we have draw cards and consistency cards in the game now that do not require the setup of having anything in your graveyard first to activate. And a lot of the times when you're playing decks these days, you want to be able to see those extra cards initially without any setup. And if you're trying to play this in any deck in modern day, you'll oftentimes find it dead and unable to activate because you'd have to have those 5 monsters engraved before you could even attempt to use this. And so you'll just be a sitting duck with this in your hand.
Okay, that makes sense.
That being said, there are a few decks that use this, their niche, and it's very good in those decks, but it's past its prime and well beyond being banned. But like I said, partial credit, it was there at one point, so your instinct isn't totally off here.
Got all these mix-ups on me.
And I gave it some thought.
Your ban list just like changes every 5 minutes.
If it changed every 5 minutes, that'd be for Yu-Gi-Oh content for all the YouTubers, because that's the season, baby, the season of content on YouTube for Yu-Gi-Oh.